Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to another Daybreak reaction video. We're almost at the end. We're almost there. We're almost there. But we're not done yet. And we have Lunar cards. Apparently, we have a lot more Lunar cards to talk about. I just kind of expected we were, for the most part, done with Lunar. But I guess we are getting some Lunar support. Some additional Lunar support within Daybreak. So we already have the Pharaoh Guy starter deck. We already have, like Rockin' a Hard Place as a Lunar card. We have the Fun Guide. We have Brontowisp. Those are both Lunar cards. There's a lot of interesting Lunar cards so far, but apparently there's more. So let's see what Lunar has to offer in Daybreak.
We shocked the Elestrals world when we told you guys that Lunar is indeed in Daybreak alongside the Pharaoh.
Hang on, just looking at these two silhouettes that we have on screen. I have no idea. I have no idea what either of these are supposed to be. So I was trying to determine whether or not these were actually Nexus forms, but I can't quite tell.
Oh, guys, starter deck.
I don't think either of them are, but maybe they're
gonna blow your mind and
four
change
Lunar cards.
Everything.
Okay. Interesting. Let's see what Lunar can do.
25 days until Daybreak pre-orders open on July 12th. And don't forget, Shattered Stars members get it a day early, and we ship first in, first out. So you'll want to get those pre-orders in.
Fantastic.
Kicking this reveal off, we're going to show off Circle the Sky. That's right.
There we go. We love Circle the Sky.
This one features Luminape and Alloon in a beautiful depiction by Giovanni, and I think you guys are going to love this. I'm very excited to complete my Circle the Sky collection.
I mean, we all knew this was coming, right?
As well.
We all knew that was coming, but still
I told y'all
epic.
we had some spicy things. The first one is a new Nexus form of Pandasin, and that is
so there is a Nexus form.
Pandalins
Okay, so we turned Pandasin into Batman is what we're doing.
With 4 attack and 1 defense that costs 1 Lunar that has a really cool, unique effect.
4/1,
You can disenchant a Lunar Spirit from this Pandalins in order to return a counter rune from your underworld to your rune row face down. Much like
very
Pandasin,
interesting.
You have the freedom of disenchanting from it to grab a rune, but instead of an invoke rune, you can actually grab a counter rune. Now, this is a little bit different because instead of adding it to your hand, you actually set it to the field face down. It does have to remain face down for a turn before you can cast that counter rune, but ultimately this is a balancing piece to ensure that your opponent knows exactly where that counter rune is.
That's fair.
Otherwise, this card might be a little too strong. I do think Pandalins is going to make a splash in Daybreak and beyond.
So, the interesting thing about this card, great effect. The fact that you're able to just recycle a counter rune, very, very important because counter runes are just very, very prevalent in Elestrals right now. The issue with this is that not only does your opponent know where that counter rune is, which he talked about, yeah, it would probably be a little too powerful if they didn't know where it was, but they also know what it is. So they know where you put it, and they're going to know what it is. So just the fact that they know, they can play around that. So I don't think this is as good as a lot of people are maybe going to think it is. Then again, though, the ability to recycle a counter rune is very, very important, especially late game where your opponent is basically forced to make certain plays. If you can just get a counter rune, it doesn't matter whether or not they know it's there or not. They are going to be forced to try to make a play. And so they might only have 1 or 2 plays in the late game. Early game, I don't think this effect is going to be that good. It might just be a decent card to summon to your field as a 4 attacker. But I do think it has potential. I think Lunar decks will play this, obviously. Just the ability to get a counter rune is great. I'm just sort of thinking about the negatives of this card, where they know where it is, they know what it is, so they can play around it like that. And there are a decent bit of decks, not too much, but there are a decent bit of decks playing stuff like Thunderstorm, or just any sort of like rune removal. Like Earth Beatdown is still a prevalent strategy, and they're playing Equal Links. So like, there are some cards that could very easily deal with that, so you do have to be mindful of that. But I do think, at the very end of the day, this card will see play in Lunar. And potentially we'll see play in other decks, but I think mostly just Lunar will play this.
Of course, and I can't wait to see it in full effect. Speaking of counter runes, this card, when I say is going to change the game, I really mean it.
Okay.
That is Dense Fog.
Dense Fog,
Dense
counter
Fog is
rune.
a brand new one-cost
counter rune.
That
Let's
simply
see.
says suppress each Elestral that is not Lunar enchanted until the end phase.
Oh boy, That's kind of crazy. So, here's something to note about this card. This does not necessarily... like, you might be thinking that this only has, like, maybe a use case when you're going offensively, maybe a little bit defensively, but for the most part, like, if you want to defensively, using it against a Viscerous to reduce its attack and potentially make it so it doesn't summon from deck. But you also might think use it offensively against your opponent's Foamy so that it can't summon from deck when you destroy it by battle. I'm sort of thinking about this as your opponent normal casts let's just say basically your opponent normal casts let's just say for example Jolton, right? They activate their effect to search a stadium. You chain Dense Fog. They are suppressed into the end phase. This is basically okay, no, I'm not going to say slightly better, but in terms of the effect negation, it is a slightly better version of Gorgon's Gaze. Mostly just because it's a 1-cost rune. This is probably going to see play in... This is probably going to be that 5th counter rune that people think about in basically every single deck. That 5th counter rune typically, recently, has been like Altar of Stars. I don't necessarily think Altar of Stars is... Altar of Stars typically sees play in decks that can benefit from Nexus. This can see play in literally every single deck. This is going to see as much play as Tsunami is, because Tsunami obviously doesn't work against water decks, but it's still one of the most played cards. This doesn't work against Lunar Elestrals. I still think this is going to see play. I think this is going to see play, especially due to the fact that it is a 1-cost. That is an unbelievable... Well, let's see what he has to say about it, but I think this is a crazy effect.
Now, for those who aren't familiar with the keyword suppress, that means that you shut off Elestral's effects, and you apply this effect to the entire field. Every Elestral that is not enchanted with a Lunar Spirit has its effect shut off for the remainder of the turn, and Dense Fog is going to be meta game changing. It's important to note that
I agree.
that have cast effects or receive effects will already have their effects put on the chain, and thus suppressing them does not stop those effects from happening, but...
Oh, I was completely wrong. I was... That's how that rolling works? Oh. Okay, I actually had no idea that's how that rolling worked. Okay, so if an effect is already on the chain, then you... Okay, so maybe it's not that amazing. But it's still a crazy effect nonetheless. Just the ability to... for example, if your opponent basically activates an effect to Nexus onto a receive Elestral, you can suppress it before the effect gets put on the chain. Because you would have to... What you would have to do is Nexus, then finish resolving the effect, but you can chain to the Nexus to suppress it before its effect would... Because... I feel like I'm not making that much sense. So, when you activate an effect to Nexus, let's just say, for example, you Nexus a Spark It onto a Toxion, alright? Let's say you go Spark It effect, Nexus onto the Toxion. The Spark It's effect would have to resolve before you can activate the effect of Toxion to burn for 1. You can chain Dense Fog to suppress the Toxion so that effect never gets activated. The only downside to this is that you are at the very least taking 1 damage from the casting of Toxion, because that effect will go on the chain first before you're able to activate Dense Fog. I actually straight up did not know, though, that that's how it works. If an effect is already on the chain, you can't suppress an Elestral to negate the effect once it gets to that. If an effect is on the chain, that effect goes through immediately. You have to suppress it beforehand. I didn't realize that. I thought you could use this retroactively, but you cannot. So that makes it a little worse, but I do still think I think this is going to be, now, with that knowledge, I think this is going to be in contention with Alter Stars for that 5th counter rune. Or I guess in the case of fire decks, a 6th counter rune, since they get to play Chains of Prometheus. But I think this is a crazy card. It still is insane. It can negate Nexus effects, because how Nexus effects works, they Nexus and then they activate the second effect. So it's basically you Nexus first, you can suppress the Elestral before it Nexuses or right after it Nexuses to suppress it so that the second effect doesn't go through. So it's a great counter to stuff like Spark It. It's a great counter to receive Elestrals. It's a great counter to Elestrals that have conditional effects like Viscerous and Foamy. It's insane. This card is going to see play in a lot of different decks. And I'm a little upset by that information because it is a rare. So it's not a foil rare, it doesn't look like, but it is a rare, therefore it will be slightly difficult to pull. So that is kind of upsetting. But hopefully this is going to be in the Pharaoh Geist starter deck. Because that obviously is more so a Lunar starter deck. So I think there is a good chance we see 2 copies of this, or at least 1 copy of it in the Pharaoh Geist starter deck to make it more accessible. That's the word that I'm looking for. This card is definitely going to see play. I would be shocked if it didn't.
But Dense Fog does indeed stop Nexus effects, where you can Dense Fog the Elestral before that when you do effect kicks off. So cards like Spark It can lose its hand rip after the Nexus. Cards like Aephros would lose their draw effect. Dense Fog can counter so many Elestrals in the game and provide some much needed support to prevent some of these strategies from getting out of...
Excuse me. Hey, wait. Go back to Aephros.
Cards like Aephros would lose their draw...
You are kidding. This entire time. Okay, this has nothing to do with any new cards. This is something to do with a card that came out in 2023 in Aephros. This entire time, Aephros has said that. I had been misremembering this effect for so long. You are kidding me. Okay. I thought, to go on a little bit of a tangent, I thought Aephros this entire time, I kid you not, this entire time, I thought Aephros said you can Nexus up to 2 water spirits. When you do, you can draw a card for each water that this card receives this way. I thought in order for you to get the draws, you had to Nexus onto itself, which made me not want to play it because I thought it was god-awful because of that. That's not what it does at all. You just Nexus... If you Nexus 2 onto a Dratagua, you not only regain 2, but you get to draw 2? Kids, this is why you read. Stay in school. I muted the video.
Dense Fog can counter so many Elestrals in the game and provide some much needed support to prevent some of these strategies from getting out of hand. I think this card is going to be a...
I don't even care about Dense Fog anymore. I just care for the fact that I had been misreading Aephros' effect for all this time. What is wrong with me?
Dominant force in the metagame.
I'm actually pissed now.
But I think it's going to make a splash in a lot of main decks, especially since Lunar doesn't fully get released until... So this thing can run...
Oh! That is amazing. He said the set.
Especially since Lunar doesn't fully get released until...
Oh, that is so good. He said the name of the set, so they had to bleep it out.
So this thing can...
That is amazing. I was thinking to myself, how often does Dan like slip up and accidentally say this stuff in these recordings? How often does that happen? We hadn't seen that big a slip up, I don't really think, ever. There may have been a couple of slip ups. There have been like some minor reveals. Like there was a tournament that happened that Distant Coder actually ended up winning. He got to face off against Dan as a result of him winning that tournament. And Dan brought a bunch of Frostfall cards. He was playing a Flammoth deck. He revealed in that stream Chains of Prometheus, Flammoth obviously, Nemisail, Tower of the Winds, and I think one more card, but I can't quite remember. But yeah, he revealed a lot of cards during that clash, but that was more of an intentional thing. He knew what he was doing. That was completely unintentional on his part. I think that's so funny.
It can run its feast on everything in the game that's not enchanted by Lunar, and let's be honest, there's not going to be much enchanted by Lunar right
No,
now.
yeah. So another thing about this card, that this effect might not be that amazing when set 4 releases because it doesn't affect Lunar Enchanted Elestrals. We'll see how much play Lunar actually ends up seeing. But before set 4 releases, throughout all of Daybreak format, this card is going to be rampant because there really isn't that much for you to there isn't that much. Like, the only deck that's going to be able to take advantage of this and like not get affected by it, like the same way like water decks aren't affected by Tsunami, is Pharaoh Geist. But there aren't. That's the only deck though. There's no like water deck that's not like, for example, water. You can play a water deck that's not playing Lockagon. You can play a water deck that is playing Lockagon. You can play Kuribus within Daybreak. Like, there's a lot of different variants of water in Daybreak. It does seem like there's only going to be one Lunar deck because the Lunar is not going to be fully released until set 4 releases. So therefore, this is going to be a lot better within Daybreak because there aren't that many Lunar Elestrals. Therefore, there's more that you can suppress with the effect. There is going to be... There's a lot of interesting stuff with this card.
I'm not done there.
We were on that card for so long. I swear we got through the first card. Panda Club? Was it Panda? It's been so long that I forgot. Well, we got Circle the Sky. And, come on, don't... it was... Pandalence. Pandalence, we were on that for, like... I want to say those 2 cards for, like, 6 minutes. I've now been recording for 17 minutes. That's how long it took us to get through Dense Fog. Let's just keep going.
I've got a brand new Lunar Elestral to reveal.
Let's go, Lunar Elestrals. We love that.
Of our good friend, Viserys. I can't wait to tell you...
Oh god, a Viserys Nexus form?
Guys,
okay.
About one of my new favorite Elestrals, Specterus.
Specterus
is a new 4 attacker with 2 defense, 1 cost Lunar with a crazy effect. This Specterus gets +1 attack for each suppressed Elestral on the field. An incredible pairing for that counter rune Dense Fog we just talked about. However, when this Specterus enters battle with an Elestral, you can suppress that Elestral until the end phase. That means Specterus removes Foamy's effect and it prevents it from getting its search effect. That means that Specterus can shut down things like Galaxy, which have their passive swapping effects. That also means that Specterus can get incredibly strong when paired with cards like Dense Fog. This card is nuts. Specterus is going to make an impact.
Okay, I realized something, which I didn't realize when it first got revealed. When he first just put this on screen, I wasn't too impressed, to be entirely honest. I thought like it had potential. There were some decks that could take advantage of this effect, but the issue with this in comparison to like something like Viserys is that Viserys is very good because it's a 5 attacker, quote unquote 5 attacker, that can swarm the field. Because once it destroys one thing, it summons another Viserys. Now there's a 6 attacker. If they stay around, then you destroy another thing. You get 3 of them now, and you have 3 7 attackers on your board. So Viserys is very good because it's able to swarm the field with a lot of high attack Elestrals. This doesn't do that. This does not swarm the field like Viserys does. However, something I am noticing, it's a 4/2, and it gets +1 attack for each suppressed Elestral on the field. The good part about this is that they did keep with the theme of Viserys being a 4 attacker that's technically a 5 attacker. That's sort of, I think, the theme they were going for, because when this enters battle, you suppress the Elestral until the end phase, which buffs it from 4 to 5 attack. And if you have any more, for example, if you have a Gorgon's Gaze or a Dense Fog, as he said, set, it can buff up its attack even further. And that's very, very good. It obviously does deal with cards like the Foamy, and that's like the main one, but just some new cards. I forget the name of it. Oh, man. Porcutide. It deals with Porcutide, so you don't take damage once it's destroyed. It's not bad. But it's not going to, it's without a doubt not going to see as much play as Viscerous was. It's not going to be, the reason Viscerous is so good is because it's able to swarm the field. This is helpful in certain situations, but it doesn't swarm the field. So it's not going to be nearly as good as Viscerous. But Lunar decks probably will still play this. It's not bad. It's basically your 5 attacker, so not terrible. It can very easily be taken advantage of. There's a lot of fun stuff that you can actually do with this, so I do expect that it will see play in at least Lunar, but I don't expect it to be seen play outside of Lunar, unless you're playing like Draco Doodle, Bronzaglow decks that suppress all the Elestrals anyway. So, that's mostly where I'm getting to it. I think it will see play in Lunar, but that's about it.
Impact in the metagame, not just for Daybreak, for sets to come. I love this card, man, and I can't wait for you guys to use it when Daybreak drops. And believe it or not, I'm not done there.
I knew it. I swear he said 4 Lunar cards. I couldn't remember though if he said 4 Lunar cards or 4 cards total. That was the 4th card, but no, we have one more.
And that is Stellar Spectrus.
Stellar, okay.
One of our brand new Stellar.
I will say that is a sick looking Stellar. That is sick. I mean, I will say the background could be a little bit more apparent. Maybe it's just because of the PNG that they have. It doesn't look like amazing. But the background could definitely be a little bit more apparent. But in terms of color palette and all that, I mean, once again, knocking it out of the park. The only thing that's a little weird to me about this one, they're getting rid of that purplish color palette, which to me was like very important for it. Because it differentiated, it made it seem like more of a Lunar card. With this, it doesn't seem too much of a Lunar card anymore. But that's about like the only complaint I have with it. It's a really sick looking card, and it kind of looks like, I'll be honest, this kind of looks like Mega Beedrill. From, if you guys have played Pokemon, it looks like Mega Beedrill, if I'm being honest.
Coming to Daybreak. Only 99 copies of this card will ever exist.
With the exception of the color palette. The color palette is not. That's what it was. Oh my god. I said yesterday I thought that was Arcolith because I couldn't see it. It was blocked by another pack. I thought it was like Arcolith or something. No, that was Stellar Spectrus the entire time.
Daybreak. So this is one you don't want to miss out on. Amalri hit a home run here, and I just love the black and yellow color palette on this guy. Lunar is going to be big in Daybreak in a big way. Dense Fog, Pangolins, Spectrus, Stellar Spectrus. Don't miss out. Mark it on your calendars.
Okay, so let's quickly get into what we have with Lunar. Will Lunar see play in Daybreak? There's potential, but not for any of these cards with the... Well, no, I shouldn't say that. All these cards help, like Dense Fog, Pangolins, and Spectrus. They help. But they're not like the mainstay. The mainstay is a card we already saw in Pharaohgeist, which we have yet to see what's in the Pharaohgeist starter deck. I expect to see Pangolins in there. I expect to see Dense Fog in there. I don't actually expect to see Spectrus in there. I think we're going to get the same treatment that Viscerous got, where Viscerous was not put in the Sense Harbor starter deck, and it was only available as a holo rare within base set. I think it's going to be the same thing here. I think Spectrus is only going to be available within the booster boxes. I don't think it's going to be available within the starter set. I kind of hope I'm wrong, because it would be sick if we could just get Spectrus, but I'm not expecting it. I do think we do need some chase cards. Not everything can be readily available, despite no matter how good it is, how bad it is, it doesn't matter. We can't just have everything readily available. We need some chase cards that aren't just like the Stellars. We can have like a one set of not having a Spectrus. Well, to be fair, I say we've had one set. We haven't had a Viscerous reprint. Viscerous has only been available within base set so far, so it hasn't been reprinted. And so far we're not getting a reprint. And honestly, I'm not expecting a Viscerous reprint. Maybe we get like a tech, maybe we get like it as a tech card in like the Pharaohgeist starter deck, but I highly doubt that. The thing that's kind of interesting to me, maybe I can't quite tell. No, it's different, isn't it? I'm looking at Dense Fog, and I'm trying to determine whether or not that is Spectrus. I don't think it is. What is this? It looks like Mantis from Kung Fu Panda. I'm gonna be honest. It looks like Mantis, but I can't tell. Like, either this is an Elestral that hasn't been revealed yet, or it's just something completely random that I'm not able to poke out. If you guys have any idea what this Elestral is, let me know in the comments. If no one knows, I'm going to assume it just hasn't been revealed. And it's probably not going to be revealed until set 4. I feel like we've seen all the Lunar cards. We might see, like, another, like, for example, like, Earth Lunar, maybe, like, Rune or whatever, but I don't think we're going to see, like, any pure Lunar cards. I'm not really expecting too much. But this is not terrible. I think there's a lot of potential for Lunar. I just don't really expect Lunar to see that much play. I think Pharaoh Geist will be a decent card, but I don't. The issue with Lunar right now is that there isn't enough, and that's sort of just how this is gonna work. That's what we have to deal with until set 4 actually releases, obviously. Because obviously Daybreak is solar focused. It's not Lunar focused. It would be sick if we could get some additional Lunar support, but that's just gonna have to wait. We're just simply gonna have to wait until set 4. We don't have anything that happened. We don't have any single Lunar Elestral currently that does anything on normal cast. We don't have anything that has a receive effect. Any Lunar Elestral with a receive effect. We will be getting all of that in set 4, I'm imagining. That's going to do it for this video, guys. Really hope you enjoy. If you did, make sure you slap the like button and subscribe for more. Hope to see you guys in the next video. Goodbye.